Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I am Gina, and this is the podcast where we enjoy some freaky conversations about past lives, our connection to our souls, our connection to the divine. And we do this for so many reasons, from healing to entertainment and everything in between. And it is all valid, and I'm so happy you're here. So in today's episode, it is me just rolling solo talking to you again. I had originally planned to do a past life regression recap, but I cannot find my notes from the life that really wants to be recapped. So I'm going to keep looking for those notes. Hard drive after hard drive. I'm going to look through my notebooks that I have. But anyway, so a little bit different change of plan than I had. But just like any time we're kind of like open to that flow, it was like, oh, this is actually perfect because I feel like I need to check in a little bit. So today what I'm covering is my Life Between Lives certification. I'll give you an update on that. I also call it the LBL, Life Between Lives. So if you hear me say LBL, that's what I'm talking about. So I'm currently going through that training, and I will give you a little update on that, a little update on what is going to look like when I get certified and start offering Life Between Lives sessions. So a little bit there because I don't totally agree with what I'm being trained in. Not that I don't agree with it, I just don't, that's not going to be my route. I'm going to take it and do a little bit something different. So I'm going to talk to you about that. And then I'm also going to talk to you about, I'm going to expand on this idea that I touched on a week ago, and I believe that was episode 41. And that's this idea of like getting good at hypnosis. And really what that is like kind of like getting good at intuition, getting good at picking up signals, messages, insights, wisdom from the other side, whether you call that spirit guides, higher self, universe, God, angels, whatever it is that you call it, whatever is on the other side supporting you. It's like, how can we get more in contact with that? So last week, a week ago, I talked about that specifically from like why hypnosis helps with that. So check out that episode if you haven't yet. And I'm going to expand on that. So I'll touch again on like why hypnosis can help. I'll go light there, but just like really diving into outside of hypnosis and in hypnosis, like how can we continue to like make strides forward so we feel more connected, more supported, and we can do a lot of that outside of hypnosis as well. And this has been coming up a lot just for me personally. It's something that has really been amped up, like this idea of connecting even more outside of hypnosis, outside of meditation. And I feel like in the last year, really since the pandemic and just like being, having not having options like I used to, reworking how I spend my time. I've just spent a lot more time outside and a lot more time walking my dogs and a lot more time fortunately had a lot of time to just think. And this is one of the things I've been thinking about. So I'm going to share kind of my journey, what's helped me, and then also some things that clients and I have been talking about. And it's obviously 2020 was a big year for everybody. And a lot of people were kind of shaken awake, whether it's like, I'm going to change my job, or I'm just looking for something more, or I'm trying to understand what else is out there. Let me work for something bigger. And I've been having kind of similar conversations. So I just want to have that conversation with you all too, because I know that I'm never the only one going through something. You're never the only one going through something. And I can tell you that when my clients come in, while every client is of course different, there is a lot of similar themes that will come up at different times. And this is definitely a theme, this idea of like, how can you be more open? The universe is trying to support us, is trying to help us, whether you see that as angels, spirit guides, however you see that, the enlightened beings that are supporting us, that are guiding us. How can we get more how can we get more better at, how can we get better at connecting with them and making it like a part of our life and making it more natural. Like I'd imagine you don't always want to feel like you're just barely getting the information, or you need to see Gina to do a past life regression to get this information. Don't get me wrong. My doors are open. I'd love for you to come in. Let's have a session together. Also, you don't need me to do this. Okay, so those are the big things that I'm covering: the LBL, connecting more with your guides, universe, your intuition, connecting more with that divine piece just in your daily life outside of hypnosis. And then at the end, for all of you people who stick through all of those tangents, then I'm going to ask for some input. Like, I've got some ideas brewing and I want to know what you think about it. So I've got 4 different things that I want your input on. And if you have interest in any or all of those things, then I'll let you know how to give me that input. And if you're listening like way in the future, you can still listen to that, because the way you'll submit questions, the way you'll submit your input is going to be the same, whether it's the future or not, or that's my understanding anyways. I'm sending you to my website. But also, if you're listening in the future and you're like, hey, I want to know more about this, or like, hey, whatever happened with this that you wanted input on, if it's not blatantly obvious, you can always ask me about that too, or you can like sign up, or whatever it is, like whatever the call to action is. You can always ask me a question. You can always let me know how you feel about these things, whether it's in the future or not. So I got you covered there. All right. So kind of a hodgepodge of things, but I can't wait to get into it. And then a quick reminder, as always, if you find this information valuable, exciting, interesting, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The listeners on this podcast, I know I'm doing something right, because when I read how you feel about the podcast, it's basically how I would feel about a podcast like this if I wasn't running it. And so it's so fun to be like, it's so fun, but then it's also kind of weird. Like, oh, I wish I knew you in person. But who knows? I mean, post-pandemic, I think this Libra is going to need a lot of group time in front of people. So it's all a work in progress, and I want your input. Okay. Before we jump into the meat of this episode, I changed some things around in my shop, in the hypnosis shop. So I have audio tracks in different audio journeys, like releasing fear. Next month, or in a week or two, I'm going to have a sleep one in there. I have like nail biting, sugar release. I have increasing your divine connection is one of them. So I have a bunch of hypnosis tracks in the shop. I plan on adding more hypnosis tracks in the shop, and just more things in the shop. But if you click on the show notes of this episode and you scroll all the way down, I've got some coupon codes that you might find valuable. I have a BIPOC coupon code, and for anyone dealing with any sort of financial hardship, I've got a coupon code for you there. And if you are someone who really wants an audio track, and you can use one or both of those if you identify as BIPOC, or if you're someone going through financial hardship, you can, if you use both those coupon codes and you're like, I still can't afford it, let me know, because my intention here is to be able to push these hypnosis tracks out to people who want them. Like, this is a time when it's like super fucking stressful, and I feel so fortunate that my job was affected by the pandemic, but not in a way that limits me in making any sort of income. And the same is true for my partner. So I just want to take this time and be like, hey, I know this is really fucking hard for a lot of people, and systemic racism and all of that. And I just this is what I'm doing right now. My process of making my business more inclusive, more aligned with my values is something that's always going to be happening. And this is just the next step. So if you're interested in that, if you identify as BIPOC or you're in financial hardship and you want a hypnosis track, go to the show notes, scroll all the way down. I put it all the way at the bottom, so it's just like easy to scroll all the way down. And then you can use those coupon codes and tell your friends. Like, I want people to use these coupon codes. I don't have them out there just so I can have them out there. Like, I really do want people to use them. I would have done like a pay what you can button, and that would be actually ideal. But I can't figure out how to do that on Squarespace. And since I'm a one-woman show, y'all are just going to have to wait till I figure that out. And if you know how to do a pay what you can on Squarespace, hit me up. Can you send me an email? And you can send me an email by going to pastlivesandthedivine.com. And you can either submit a question and just let me know what that is, or you can subscribe and then hit reply to the email that I send you after you subscribe and let me know. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, let's get into this. Are you ready? Gather around the fire. Let's get started. First up, I've got my Life Between Lives certification update. So as you've heard before, Madonna and I have been slowly chipping away at this. There's 50 hours, and then I do 5 practice Life Between Lives. So I have, to be honest, I don't even know how many hours we've done. We've been slowly hacking away at it, just a handful of hours a week since sometime in December. We took a lot of January off, or I should say like the last 2 weeks, because my lady Madonna was traveling and unable to Zoom and train. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of pushing it out a little bit. My intention, like I said, was to launch it or kind of like start some pre-launch stuff in February for it. But that ain't going to happen because we are almost in the middle of February and I am not done. I have completed 2 test Life Between Lives, or not test, but like practice ones. And then I have 2 more scheduled, and then I have 1 more that needs to be scheduled. So a little bit of work on my end, and then I will be crafting how I will offer this service to you all. So here's kind of the rub. Like I explained before, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast, is the certification that I'm going through is based off of the Michael Newton process. So the Michael Newton Institute has his Life Between Lives training. And so Madonna and my instructor learned from Michael Newton. And it's my understanding that at the time, Michael Newton was actually working with someone by the name of Dr. Alan Chips. And then Dr. Alan Chips and I think a couple other people started the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists, which is what I'm certified through. So this is not through the Michael Newton Institute, but it is basically similar training, or that's where this training originated. You might be like, who the fuck is Michael Newton? And, if you were to Google Michael Newton or Michael Newton Institute, Michael Newton to me is really similar to Brian Weiss, who is also an author, also I think was an atheist until he started working with clients and in a therapeutic setting, like a psychiatry setting. And I think they were working with hypnosis. Both of them spontaneously had clients who kind of like accidentally or went deeper than just typical hypnosis, this life stuff. And that's when both of these people, Dr. Brian Weiss, or is he a doctor? I don't know. Brian Weiss and Michael Newton, they both kind of went from like atheists to, oh, now we believe in past lives and the life between lives and all of that stuff, just based on like where their clients went spontaneously over the years. So with Michael Newton, what he did then was he wanted more understanding in this. And so he led Life Between Lives sessions with the intention of figuring out, like, what happens after you die? Do you do A and then B and then C? And so in working with clients and writing books and trying to understand this, he basically created a process. And if you read any of his books, you'll get a feel for the process of like, and his books that I would recommend are like Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, Life Between Lives, I think is like the name of one of his books. And that's actually a shorter book. The Journey of Soul and the Destiny of Soul is super long. But if you're into this, you might like it. I listened to 20 hours of one of those books while I was painting a room once. And it was very, very like, I don't know, just like I listened to an audiobook, so the voices are kind of like, you guys, it's my laundry again. So the voices were just like, I can still hear those voices. Anyways, it's very structured. He was trying to write books, is my understanding. He was trying to figure this out. And I just can't get down with all of that structure. First of all, I just don't believe that structure is a thing. And the couple Life Between Lives sessions that I've facilitated, it's just like they don't even go with that structure. And I think it's because I'm not meant to do that. And in the way I'm being trained, then this Life Between Lives certification, and when I'm trained and when I'm launching it, I'll describe more about it if you're wondering what it is. And you can always send me questions about it too. That would help me craft that episode. But basically, when you go into it, the thought is like you regress them or you put them through an induction that regresses them through this life, and then through birth, and then into kind of the other side. And then it's in the other side, we go into a past life, see a couple scenes, death scene, and then the soul leaves the body, and then it's from there that we get to the Life Between Lives. And I just don't believe you have to do all that. That session is like 3-4 hours long. I don't have it in me right now to do that. Maybe future me does. Check my website if you're listening in the future. But the way I think I'm going to what I like about Life Between Lives in that type of session is the idea of probably like my number one favorite thing about it is the ability to truly understand why we chose our physical body. And I probably think this is really important because I spent 15 years in the wellness industry. I am a woman living in the United States. We are all, for many reasons, which I won't go into here, most women or even people who don't identify as women, most people have issues around their body, like wishing it could be different. Maybe it's legitimate, like you're dealing with chronic pain. Whether it's legitimate, like chronic pain, or not legitimate, like everyone else thinks I have this great healthy body and it's never good enough for me. Whatever side or pocket of the spectrum you're on there, most of us are affected by that. And it was one of the reasons why I got out of the wellness industry is because I feel like when we focus on that so much, it actually is to the detriment of our goals. That in and of itself could be an hour conversation, so I'm not going to go into it. Again, if you have questions, let me know. But I just think being able to undo that, being able to not feel like victimized by our bodies, even though it shouldn't be that way, and come on, it's not that bad. A lot of us feel that. I could see that in my wellness practice, and that permeates every part of our life. I don't think that I feel stress in one part of my life and it doesn't affect the other parts of my life. That's just not the human experience. And so that's probably like right now in this moment, my number one reason why I think a lot of people would benefit from a Life Between Lives session. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. I think, and then also too, is like this idea of like, why did I choose my parents? Why did I choose certain things in my life? And it's a really great way to be able to get this kind of third person point of view on your life. And it's a really interesting way to just make peace with the shit that we battle every day that we don't necessarily need to battle. We maybe know it shouldn't be a big deal, but we just can't let it go. Like for some reason, we just can't feel okay with it. And that is incredibly powerful. And then I think the life between lives experience, many of us encounter our spirit guides, whether it's like, oh, I can visually see a picture of them in my mind's eye, or, oh, I'm feeling the love from them, or, oh, I sense them near me. And this is what that feels like. There's so many different ways to experience the love of a spirit guide, a passed on ancestor. There's so many different reasons to do a life between lives that I think it can be incredibly overwhelming. And the session is so fucking long. Like, after a past life regression, like still, I only do one a day because I think it'd be a lot to do 2 a day. Anyway, so I think what I'm going to do, stay tuned, TBD, but it's coming clear to me that what I'm going to do is, instead of being like, do you want to do an LBL session? How it's going to look is like, I'm almost going to package these sessions in terms of like general intention statements. So like a life between lives journey to understand your connection to your physical body, a life between lives journey to understand why you chose your parents, or something like that. This is where I'm starting. I'd imagine it's going to morph and grow as I work with more people in this realm and more people see what I'm doing and go, oh, this is the version of that I need. The more I see that, it's easier for me to customize it. But for right now, I will be certified in life between lives therapy. I believe sometime in March it'll be all over. So like 4 to 6 weeks. And it's at that time that I'll kind of dig into it. So if you want more information on life between lives, if this seems interesting to you, you could certainly dig into the Michael Newton stuff. Brian Weiss does some stuff. I don't know if he does life between lives or if that's just past life regression, but another one who I love, Dolores Cannon. So if you were to even Google her, she has so many books, audiobooks, regular books, all of it. So if you were like, well, which one should I do? There's so much information. I would say start at Dolores Cannon, just because she's not as like rigid and directive as Michael Newton. And if you are interested in Michael Newton's way and his path and all of that, for sure, of course, read those books. But I would start at Dolores Cannon if you're like brand new to this. That's where I'm at right now. And I just love me some Dolores Cannon. Okay. Another thing that I'm going to touch on in a little bit, not right now, but because I'm going through this certification, I'm continually asking Madonna questions like, but like, why do I need to see a past life before I go to life between lives, right? Like technically, if someone regresses me in an induction, so I'm being hypnotically I'm being led into a hypnotic trance. And one way to do this, and Michael Newton's life between lives, is to regress the client down through different ages, right? Kind of firing up the memory banks. Okay, let's pull a memory of when you were 15. We're going to pull a memory of when you're 10, 3. Okay, now we're going to go backwards through time and into the mist in between lives, and then they plunk you in a past life. But it's like, technically, when I regress myself back through preconception, aren't I in life between lives? Like, why do I have to go back to a past life? I don't understand it. I have so many questions, and I think what's really cool about this work and about just thinking in this way and being open-minded is that oftentimes when I learn something, it makes me have more questions. which I'm okay with because I think questions are interesting. And I'm at a point in my life where I don't feel pressure to make a decision based on a question. I don't feel like I need to change things if I'm questioning it. This alone has been really freeing. But I guess what I'm saying is when I think of the directive way Michael Newton has this certification set up, I think, yeah, I mean, on a human level, I can totally see why you would be like, this is the process. This is what I'm going to try to figure out. I get it, right? Like, I have my own experiences with my spirit guides, hypnotic trance, different lives, a fucking life on another planet. Like, I've had many out-of-body experiences. I've been front row seat to my clients who have done the same things. And I actually haven't ever had a client who had a life on another planet. I've had clients who have had memories of lives where they're having out-of-body experiences. I've had clients who, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of one client who like met part of herself, like kind of in these tall weeds. Oh my God, what was that? You guys, I have so many questions. Okay. Yeah. And she like blasted off into the universe. I've had clients who are like, I'm a bird now, I'm flying, but I've never had anybody who has like life on another planet. Maybe that should be, but okay, so, right, I have all these questions because even though client to client to client, the information they receive is similar, the simplicity of it, the beauty of it, the profound weight of it, but everybody's experience is also a little bit different. So I had this thought in my mind of like, I get it, Michael Newton, I get like the exploration that you want to do and trying to figure this stuff out, but I'm just not someone to take a process and just follow it, like A to B to C. Like if I do that, it's probably not happening for very long. Like I get bored incredibly easy. So my thought was like, I've got people in my orbit now, past clients, friends, people who have become friends who were clients, like, and really what I want to do there is like an exploratory group, right? Or maybe we do like group hypnosis, or it's an audio recording, and then the group has questions that they're searching for answers. So instead of it being like personal questions that I'm going to do a spirit guide session with, right? Like once you do a past life regression with me, there's other options, right? You can do a higher self session, you can do a spirit guide session, and it's really kind of like a DIY psychic reading. But with that, obviously people come with their personal questions, and I want like general questions so we can see the different types of answers that come through on general questions between different people in the Explore group. And maybe we can see like commonalities and see what we're doing. And I want to ask questions and do themed group explorations like aliens, other planets, past lives, spirit guides, connecting with past loved ones who have passed away. So a lot there. I'm just forming this group, and more to come on that. So I'm going to tell you how to get input and stuff like that in a little bit, but we're not at the input section of this tour. So next up, so that's the LBL. Stay tuned. I am in the middle of it, and it will not be a straight up Michael Newton LBL situation that I'm offering, but it'll have those principles in it, which no one has an exact life between lives session anyways. So it's like, why do we have to do all this structure? Anyway, okay, so on to the next piece of this puzzle, which is really an extension of the conversation of like how to get good at hypnosis. And this is more like how to get good at utilizing and trusting and knowing your intuition. What I find with clients is a lot of times it's not if we're being communicated to, it's like, it's how. That's the question. It's not if the universe wants to conspire with you or if your spirit guides are trying to help. It's like, how is that information coming into you? I believe our brains are almost like also an antenna system, and our bodies are kind of like a big antenna. And a lot of times when people think of intuition coming in, we're very short-sighted and narrow, and we think like, oh, I'm going to see this. The amount of clients who come out of a past life regression and they're like, well, okay, let me just tell you, I couldn't really see anything. It was more like I could feel it. Or everything was kind of blurry from, if I looked up from the floor, but I could kind of tell what was going on. And that is actually more common. I mean, if you're anything like me, and maybe I think it's more common because it's my experience too, when I'm a client and the facilitator's like, are you inside or outside? I almost have to like feel it, like, okay, I feel like there's trees around me, I'm outside. Or, okay, yeah, I feel like I'm sheltered, I'm inside. And then when I say that, then kind of like the picture populates. And it's not like, oh, a clear picture of the horizon or the inside of a home or something like that. Oftentimes it's just kind of like the next detail that I need to grab onto. And while that is kind of the method and how things happen for me in a past life regression or in a hypnosis session, I do think that that is just the way intuition works. Again, not only do we feel like, oh, I have to see a clear picture, but we think it's like a clear picture of the ending. When really what intuition is, in my experience with myself and clients, is this idea of like, what's the next step? What's the next thing I need to embody? What's the next thing I need to do? And sometimes with that is just like waiting for it to show up, whether it's the next step, information about the next step. That is really how I experience intuition, whether it's in a hypnotic trance or in my life. It's never like this clear picture, crystal ball moment of you're going to do A, and then you're going to do B, and then you're going to do C, and happily ever after. It's like, here are your options, or here is a list of things that you could do. Like if I'm wanting ideas or trying to generate ideas, like for this explore group that I was talking about. But really what comes in is like, this is the next step. And you take the next step knowing the next step will be apparent to you when it's ready. But I think a lot of suffering for us comes in those moments of like, waiting, being disappointed that we don't, quote, see more, or being disappointed that we don't see. A lot of times people are just missing the intuitive hits rather than being like, oh, I'm not connected, or my spirit guides don't want to help me, or I'm not any good at this. It's like, I mean, if you've never done it before, we're not going to be good at it, unless you have some natural talent there. But the really cool thing is that, like I've said a million times, it's that natural trajectory of your brain and your body want to make things easier. So the more you do something, think something, say something, the easier it gets next time. That's just the way our humans' bodies, nervous systems work. And so the same is true with going into the subconscious mind to pull out past life memories, or by getting quiet and listening for your intuition. So when anyone talks about intuition, a lot of times they'll say words like listen, or what do you see, or I saw. And if that is something that trips you up, exchange that word with experienced. What did I experience? What am I thinking right now? What am I experiencing right now? And opening it up so the scope isn't just what am I seeing in my mind? Because it's not often a seeing, it's like a feeling, right? It might not be me seeing exactly how this spirit exploration group is going to go, but I do know the next step. The next step is like, organize the group, let people know the details who are interested, get the people who are interested signed up so we can like get moving. These are just the next details. And sometimes when it's like, well, I know what I need to do, but I could get there by doing A, B, or C. Then we sit with A, B, or C and see which one feels right to us. And when I say feel, I mean just however you experience intuition. It might be a picture of you being happy. It might be a feeling of lightness and freedom. It might be a feeling of like, ew, that doesn't feel right. These are all valid intuitive hits, but we oftentimes discount them because, we think it should be like a burning bush or a fucking lightning strike from heaven right to the forehead. And that's just not how it is. I've talked about this before. I don't know, probably on many episodes, but I think of it as like, if you think of the mind as a pond or a lake or something like that, and it's just like crashing around, right? Crashing around. There's all kinds of things to think about. We're reacting to life. We're, trying to live up to standards of someone else or our unrealistic standards. It can feel pretty chaotic. There's a ton going on. But the way intuition is, it's like it comes into our consciousness very subtly, quietly, but profoundly. Like we can feel it. And so really what we want to do is just quiet that mind, make that pond, that lake, crystal clear and smooth so that when a drop of intuition hits, it ripples through and we can't miss it. That's the benefit of a quiet mind. That's the benefit of meditation. If you can quiet your mind outside of meditation and you think meditation's a fucking grind, just take a break from meditation. And hey, I'm taking a break from meditation right now. Like, I think I've been on like a 1.5 break. And every once in a while I will sit down and meditate if I'm feeling called to do it. But for the most part right now, what works for me is just taking, an hour a day where I'm walking outside, either just letting my mind wander or specifically asking information or just like noticing what's around me, being present. All of these things lead us to be more in touch with who we are and more in touch with the subtleties of intuition. So the whole like smooth, clear pond versus the wavy one where, a whole storm cloud of drops could hit it and you maybe wouldn't even notice it. I want you to know that that's not the only way to get that information. But if you're struggling with making a connection, feeling intuitive, understanding how yours comes in, then quieting your mind on a regular basis is really a great way to get to know that. And like I talked about a couple episodes ago, hypnosis is a great way to get to understand how that intuition comes in, how it feels to you, what it looks like to you, what that experience is like for you, opening up every sense that you can and just trusting it and playing with it. I was actually just having a conversation with a client about this specifically, and it was so specific. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been having variations of this conversation, and I need to talk about it. And one of the things we were talking about was this client had gone through their past life scene. They were a return client, and it was just their second time with me. They had gone through past life scenes, and I was like, hey, I want you to know, like, you've got natural talent here. I mean, we all do. But in the past life regression, this client, when we were through the past life scenes, you go through the death scene. Most people go through a death scene. Some people don't. And then you come out on the other side, you're in that space of spiritual guidance. And that's where I, as the facilitator, ask the questions that the client wants to ask their spirit guides. So I ask the client those questions. And when they hear the question, they wait for the answer to come in. Just like when I would ask a question about a past life scene, they're waiting for an answer to come in and then they answer. They don't right away go, I don't know. In this session with this client, in that spiritual guidance space, I would ask a question and the spirit guides would respond with an answer. And this client would then say, oh yeah, I've been doing that. Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Like now I'm kind of connecting the dots between things I was feeling motivated or inclined to do before. And even though you could be like, oh, I didn't get any new information, that affirmation that what we're currently doing is so valuable. that getting affirmation of like what you're doing right now is enough. Who you are right now is enough. I mean, when we get that in a hypnotic state, it chips so much away from the sense of unworthiness that is really seems like a human struggle. I'm not sure what unworthiness means or why we're all afflicted with it on some level, but it seems as if this sense of like unworthiness is like it can lead to just this lack of confidence and lack of trust in yourself. And in order to use and connect to intuition, you need to trust yourself. And not only that, but you like need to trust yourself with things that you've been told. We've all been told that it's just your imagination. This is bullshit. Don't worry about it. Oh, you're making that up. And so I say this all to say to you, if you're struggling with it, or listen to this so one day when you are struggling with it, because it's all spiralic, right? We struggle and then we don't. We struggle and then we excel. We struggle and then it's neutral, right? We go in and out of these things. So I explain this to you by saying, not only are we not trained to trust it, but we also, in a way, are often not trained to trust ourselves. And so it's kind of this like double whammy of course you don't trust it. Of course, like you're reworking almost like your whole thoughts of like what's right and wrong, what's possible and not possible, what's acceptable and not acceptable. And that's a fucking massive undertaking. I say this to encourage you and encourage myself to like go slow, be kind to yourself. And I've talked about this on the podcast, I believe with Ashley Sondergaard in our astrology episodes. Maybe it's the astrology episode that's about to come out. I don't know. But one of the things she talks about is like, she talks a lot about astrology and self-care. And one of the things that and check out her podcast, it's called Yoga Magic. But one of the things that she says a lot is like, just try it. Like if you're trying to like rejuvenate yourself, replenish yourself, nourish yourself, and you feel inclined to try something new, whether it's meditation or a smoothie recipe or going to see a certain therapist or whatever it is, just try it. What's going to happen? It's not going to fit? Good. Then you can move on. No matter what you try, if you want to, you can learn more about yourself. You can learn more about why it's working. You tried this new thing and it's perfect. And you can learn about why it's perfect and enjoy those things and feel gratitude for those things. But if you try something and it just feels like a grind, or you make too many changes and it feels overwhelmed, I can tell you from my spirit guides and from many, many of my clients' spirit guides, there are so many paths to consciously evolve, consciously awaken our souls and create the life that we came here to create. There are so many paths, and something that every spirit guide says when asked questions around this is choose a path that sparks joy, choose a path that makes you feel better. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the millisecond of joy I feel when I cross something off my list. That's not going to cut it. We need more than that. We deserve more than that. So when I say like it feels replenishing right now, to me, going on an hour-long or hour-and-a-half-long walk with my dogs is so rejuvenating. And like at this moment, I don't think we've walked in like a week. It's been below 0. Blah. If you follow me on Instagram, if we're connected on Instagram, I hate that. If you follow me, don't follow anyone, follow yourself. If we're connected on Instagram, you probably saw me. I posted pictures about Roxanne not wanting to wear her boots. And so she has been pouting for a week about not walking, which is not good for my mental health. Oh, I just feel their emotions so much. It's so hard. It's like one of the reasons why I walk my dogs is because I can hardly handle my own anxiety and energy. When they're not fully expended, I'm just like, rah, hanging from the rafters. But, okay, so I go off on that tangent to tell you, like, do what feels good. Like a walk for 60 to 90 minutes, even like a 20-minute walk. It's not like, but I have the time and I have the dogs who need the walk. So for me, a 60 to 90-minute walk is like so perfect. It's so perfect for me. But what would, if the cultural narrative was talking to me about my walks, it would be like, that's not hard enough to count as a workout. And it's not meditation, so you still have to meditate. And it's like, no, fuck you. I'm working out and I'm reflecting and I'm being mindful and I'm listening for guidance. That's what works for me right now. In a year, I'm guessing it will be at least slightly different. And that's okay. And that's life. And I actually need that change to feel good. So if you're doing practices that feel like a fucking slog, switch it up. Because we excel and we do better when we're actually fueled by more like genuine gratitude, love, positivity, self-acceptance. That's true with evolving spiritually, consciously. That's true with trying to connect with your intuition. And that's true in every other part of your life too. It's true in our careers. It's true in our relationships. I encounter so many people who think that like resentment is a great motivator, or like self-hatred is a great motivator, or not loving themselves keeps them working hard. And I had a client recently where this client showed up and the intention statement for the session was something about seeing a past life so they don't feel, there was a fear of success there, a fear of success. But the past life scenes that this client saw was had to do with like a really simple, content life. And it was really almost, from my perspective, I mean, I'll never understand the scope in which this client experienced, right? Because I'm only hearing what they're communicating to me. I don't know, obviously, what they're experiencing. I mean, not obviously. Maybe you thought that. I don't know. I'm not that psychic. But it was really kind of this beautiful thing, and I love it when it happens in a past life regression because it's so unexpected. It's so simple, and the effects of it can go so far. But it's like a lot of times we think of like, oh, I have a fear of, for example, in this client's case, a fear of success. And a lot of times we think of that as like, what's the block here? What do I have to release or remove? And in reality, it's like, what do you need to get back? Like, when we are filling a hole that won't get filled, like the more money I make, the more money I think I should make, or, the more success I have, it's never enough because I should have been farther faster. And really what that is like us, from my experience, tying our self-worth to external stuff. I'm not saying you can't go for all the money or all the things or all the partners. What I'm saying is like, don't be thinking that's going to be the key to your long-term happiness. It's really like this past life regression with a client recently where it was really scene after scene in this past life was all about simplicity, contentment. Simplicity, contentment. And really what I like to do in that trance state, because we're so open and our subconscious mind is open to shift and change, we just sat there for a few minutes where this client just allowed that feeling of contentment to bubble within and overflow, so it becomes easier for this client to feel that contentment in the future. Because when we feel content, or I can only assume from this client's session, when that person feels content, they are less likely to compare themselves. How am I doing success-wise? You already feel good. You already feel worthy. And it feels so simple. And, Gina 20 years ago would have, in my mind, I don't think I would have had the words to describe this, but in my mind, I would have been like, that's scary. I feel like if I don't beat myself up, if I don't grind, if I don't push myself to exhaustion, I'm never going to make it. If I give myself the benefit of the doubt, if I give myself a break, I'm never going to not take a break. I'm going to be lazy. All that shit is bullshit. And it actually just keeps us exhausted and distracted. So just keep it simple. What the fuck tangent did I just go on? Let me look at my notes. Okay. All of this is to say, get quiet, get reflective, to allow those messages to come in. Hypnosis is great if you're like, I feel totally lost. I don't know what any of this feels like. That's a really good way to have someone really guide you through so you can understand how things come in and how that feels. And as you know, if you've listened to every podcast episode, I've actually done past life regressions where I'm the client, and my sole intention for the session is to understand what intuition feels like in my body. And because I've done multiple sessions like that, in different situations, different maybe categories of insights and wisdom feel differently in my body. Does this have to do with my gifts? It feels differently. Does this have to do whether it's right or wrong? It feels differently. And the only way you'll be able to figure that out is you dancing with the universe in that way and being like, oh, what does this feel like? And so if you're not going to do hypnosis, which is totally fine, and even if you are going to do hypnosis, I think looking in the rearview mirror is a really great way to understand your intuition. And you can start doing this mindfully right now. Like, we all feel it, right? Like, oh, you're, maybe throwing on your jacket and you're going to go somewhere. Maybe you're leaving for the day. Oh God, obviously pre-pandemic. But like, just for example's sake, it's like, oh, I feel like I should maybe bring a sweater, or, ooh, I feel like I should bring my AirPods. Oh, I feel like I should bring this. And then I don't. And then I want that thing that I felt like I would never in a million years have a need for. That's, instead of using that as a weapon to beat myself up, I look back at that and go, okay, but what did that feel like? Okay, interesting. Next time I get that feeling, I'm going to follow it and see what happens. And it's really turning this into like an adventure in figuring yourself out. And take it light like a game, take it light like it doesn't matter, because that is what's going to keep us coming back for more. Humans don't come back for punishment. They come back for joy, they come back for appreciation and gratitude, they come back for love, they come back for peace. We don't go for punishments. So if you're thinking of it in terms of like, well, I did this, now I need to do this. I used to do that all the time with like exercise. Oh, I got to do a punishment workout. Like, those were words that I would actually say, which is just like the antithesis of like, no. Going down the wrong path. So it's about like utilizing that rear view mirror. And this client was also the client I was talking about, who was like, oh yeah, I've been, this client was getting spiritual guidance from their spirit guides. And it was like, oh yeah, these are things I've already been doing. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, because it's like, okay, you got this affirmation from your spirit guides, your higher self, that you're on the right track. How did you make these decisions? Okay, what did that feel like? Okay, how can you play with that in the future? And think of it as play. And when your mind goes, this needs to be serious because that's the only way this is going to work, you can go, oh, that's old programming. Thanks, but I don't need that for this. And the more you say that, the fewer times you'll have to say it. So keep it light. Practice in any way with hypnosis, a one-on-one session with someone like me or someone else you trust. You can do it with your at-home journey, the past life at-home journey that you can get on my website, Past Lives and the Divine. And then I also have, obviously, like the tarot and hypnosis stuff. Let me go through my list here. So if you're like, I'm brand new to this, even if you're not brand new to this and you've forgotten what all my podcast episodes are about, like me, I made a list for you. So episode 42, 40, 39, 36, 32, 24, 19, 18, and episode 10 and more episodes in the future, we are on episode 43, they all of those episodes include free hypnotic journeys, whether it's more non-directive, where I do an induction and then I ask questions and you're getting answers to those questions in your own mind, or if it's more of a directive script like the tarot and the hypnosis episodes, where it's really just implanting in your subconscious mind these seeds of like beautiful thoughts, ways of embodying lessons, ways of moving forward. But all of these things help quiet your mind. All of these things help you access and dance with the information in your subconscious mind and everything you're sensing from the universe around you. So look in the rearview mirror, play with it, get light with it, see what's worked in the past, play around with it in the future. That's it. It should not feel like a grind. It should not feel overwhelming. That's actually pushing us in the opposite direction. Another thing to keep in mind is this sense of like, it will change. And so you'll know when to change it. And you might be like, I don't know when to change these introspective mind quieting practices. And you'll know when to change it because you won't want to do the ones that you're already doing. And you'll be like, I'm done with these. I don't want to do these anymore. And it doesn't matter what the reason is, it's the feeling. And I guess that I'll share like a little bit of my progress is like part of my intuition and helping me feel not so heavy, serious, holding myself accountable, was this idea of like, I used to, when shit would go wrong or I wasn't in a great mental space, it'd be like, what's the reason here? What's the lesson here? And that really served me for a long time. And I still use that every once in a while. Like, what is the lesson? What am I supposed to embody? We can learn a lesson, but if you don't embody it, then the lesson is going to keep showing up. And you're going to keep going, why do I get this shit in my life all the time? Why do I always attract these situations or people? And I think it's just because we may have thought we learned something, but we are not putting it into practice. And so I used to think that I was like, in my quiet time, I'd like ponder and think of like reasons, like, why is this happening? What's the lesson here? And I think that's valid and that works. And I will go back to that if I feel like I need to in different situations. But really, I have moved to a space with my intuition where when I feel something, I don't need a reason. When it's like, oh, can you, insert work request or insert event invite or, pre-pandemic, insert social engagement. And instead of being like, oh no, I'm not going to go because insert excuse that'll, I don't know, make me feel like I want to go, but I can't go because and instead just being like, what's true? Like, I don't want to go. Nope, I won't be there. And I remember Kristen Barber one time saying that. She was on episode 39, I think, the episode where it's like 40 things you might not know about me. And she is someone who's always planning things pre-pandemic, always planning things, always doing things. And I'll never forget when the first time I was like, no, I don't want to see that concert. Like, we used to always go to concerts together. And I just am over it. Like, I'm fucking terrified of heights. If it's not a small venue, I probably don't want to go because I can't afford the seats I want. And I'm not sitting up in the fucking nosebleeds. And I just remember one time being like, no, I'm not going to go to that. And she was like, that's an option, huh? And it was just this really great exchange of like, yeah, I'm claiming this. And then it kind of gave her, because of our relationship, just like, it gave her license to do that in her life. And like, what a beautiful thing. Like, I love you and I don't want to go to that concert. And it doesn't say anything bad about me or you. And the fact that you want to go, knock yourself out. Like, neither one of us needs to take that personally. Neither one of us needs to know like the lessons or the reasons behind it. It's just like, I'm feeling this way. I trust myself. I love myself. I know that people I hold close, my friends, people I consider family, want the best for me. So even if they are disappointed in my actions, at the end of the day, they trust that I'm a grown-ass fucking person who can make these decisions on my own. It's an evolution. Like trying to find the lesson or the reason behind hard times, or the lesson or the reason I was feeling a certain way. I used to like dig for that and use it to justify what I thought or what I was about to do or say or how I was going to respond to someone. And now the intention behind that back then was like, I don't feel good enough to just say no. I don't feel like I can just say no. I feel like I need to have 15 reasons why I need this. And now my evolution has changed and it's just like, I need this. And if you don't agree with it, then ask a question. But this is what I'm feeling. This is what I need. And to me, what that signals in me, at this point in my life, if this comes around in 20 years again, I'm sure it'll be different. But like what that says to me about me is like, this is kind of like a marker, a scratch in the bedpost, if you will, on my journey of like not feeling so unworthy. And it's like, I am just worthy as I am, and I don't want to go to that thing. I am worthy as I am. I'm not going to offer that kind of service. And if someone wants it, they can ask me why I don't. They can go and ask me who does this session like that. You know, like there's all kinds of reasoning and digging in that I used to do that I just don't need to do anymore because I've done enough digging. And that's my path. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't have to find the reason. Trusting in myself and just going with what I feel is easy, then like, cool, you're already there. It took me a long time to get there, but it doesn't matter. Like your path is different than mine. I'm sure there's things on my path that are easier than on your path. You know, call it even. It all works out. So there it is. That is my piece on like your guides. It's not if, it's how they're talking to you. Get quiet. Do introspection, reflection, choose things that feel good on a daily basis or a semi-regular basis that helps you open up, helps you get quiet, and helps you reflect. Like reflect on the times in the past when you thought you felt an intuitive nudge. And what's so cool is like in the rearview mirror, you can kind of see the future, right? Did it work out? What did that nudge, what happened after it? What happened next? So being light, looking in the rearview mirror, trying a lot of different things. If anything feels like a grind, just let it go. Let it go. You don't have to do that. And actually, it'll work better if you don't grind it out. Just find something new, play, stay light. All right, we've covered LBL stuff. We've covered how your universe and your guides want to talk to you and how we can get out of our own way. And on to the input section of this tour. So a few things that I want your input on if you're feeling inclined to do so. The first one isn't really input. It's like your action, which you can choose to take or not. So I have evolved a little bit. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's a de-evolution. But I caught myself setting a loose goal maybe like 4 months ago or something. And I do not thrive under goals and numbers and checking and striving. It's just not how things come to me. And there is a whole lifetime of stories behind that. But when I do get something that's out of the norm, I pay attention to it. And so it was like, oh, that's interesting. I never really set a goal. I wonder what that is. And it's just kind of stuck around. And I'm on episode 43. And so I'm kind of rounding the corner on this goal. And I want to share it with you. Okay, so the goal is, my goal by the time I get to episode 50 of this podcast, buckle up because I'm talking boring ass numbers here. I personally want 1,000 downloads per episode. It's just like this arbitrary goal that I know I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be at episode 60 and I'll have like 49,000 downloads and I'll be like, fuck, I wish I would have maybe applied myself. So here is my one big effort to be like, I'm on episode 43. At episode 50, I want 50,000 downloads. Okay, so that's 1,000 downloads per episode. That is absolutely not how it shakes up. Obviously, there's some episodes that are way more popular than others. That's not important. I'm going for an average. Right now, I'm at an average of like, I don't know, 950 or something like that. So I'm like close enough where I feel like if I just put my foot on the gas pedal a little and try a little, I might be able to get there. But I am just one person. I see this as our podcast. I need you. If you weren't here, I would not still be doing this podcast. And so I'm wondering if you're feeling inclined, if you were half on doing this action item anyway, if I could just nudge you a little bit down that path. And if you've made it this far in this episode, I'm assuming you kind of like what I do. Okay, so my request, if you should take me up on it, and I want you to know if you're like, I cannot handle one more thing, I can't do this, valid, I still love you. But if you are someone who's like, I could do this a little more, I have a little idea. So go through the episode list and be like, this episode I think would be really good for this friend to listen to, or this family member always talks about this. I'm just going to go back and send them this episode. So that would be one way to spread the word to someone new who has never heard of this podcast. And then another way for all of my misfits just like me, if you feel like I don't have anyone to talk to about this, I'm here to tell you that more people are open to this type of weird stuff than you know. Even if they're just open to it and they don't have an opinion, I think that still helps. And it's just an interesting way to learn more about your friends. So if you are feeling like you want one person in your regular life to talk to about this, like not internet friends, or internet friends if you want, I guess, but like someone you see on the regular, someone you text on the regular, someone you email with, someone you call on the regular, and they don't know anything about this side of you, here's my challenge. My challenge is for you to think of that person who you think would be most open to you talking about this. And maybe, just maybe, you can find a podcast episode in my catalog of episodes that you feel like you could share with them and it wouldn't be too terribly scary. And you could just see, are they open to this or not? And as someone who has done this little by little over the last decade, I can tell you more people are open to this than you think. More people are already thinking about this stuff than you think. Like my friend Barber, who I, for years, didn't really ever talk to her about this stuff. I mean, I would every once in a while, but it's just, you know how you have like friends that you talk about certain things with, and not that you can't talk about it, but it's just like you kind of talk about what you have in common, I guess, or maybe your history or whatever. And her and I never really talked about it. And then I was hosting, this was a couple of years ago, these, I don't know, sessions in my condo at the time where I would have like friends come over and we'd do a hypnotic journey and just kind of chat about it. And I invited her over because she lived in the building. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have invited her because I would have never thought she was interested in it. And so I invited her because I was like, hey, I'm having friends over. You want to come down and check it out? And we were talking about intuition. I would always have like a different topic or whatever. And we were talking about intuition. And she was talking about all the ways that she leans on it and uses it and understands it. And I was just like sitting across from her in the circle being like, get the fuck out. Why don't we talk about this? Like, we talk about everything but this. I mean, I would talk about this every once in a while, but I think that I was projecting onto her that she didn't care. And so I took her not knowing a lot as like her not wanting to talk about it, which I don't know. I feel like I don't feel like I missed out. Everything I believe, again, I don't need to know the reason, but it happens as it should happen. And I'm happy that it happened, but I'm sharing this story so that you can go, oh, maybe I do actually have a friend. And right, like all we need is like one really good friend to feel like we're not alone. And if you feel like I don't have anybody, I really honestly don't have anybody, like I would be ostracized from my community, then don't worry about it. And you know what? I am your community. We are your community. And someday you will meet some of us and we will all be friends and you will feel better. So at least you can feel hope for the future, feel good that you have this outlet. And if someone seems open to it in the future, you can always talk to them about it. But that's my little challenge for you. And if I get to 50 episodes and no one listens and I didn't get to 50,000, honestly, it's probably not even going to hit my radar. But you know what? I'm someone who never ever sets goals like this anymore. I was feeling moved. So let's do it. We're at episode 43. I think I have just over 40,000 downloads or something like that. And I want to get to 50,000. So just even if a handful of you would spread this to a few more people, I think we could get there. Let's see it. Let's make our community of kind of weirdos a little bit bigger, knowing that someday we'll meet. Someday we will have like a hug or something. That makes me feel so good. Okay. So 50,000 downloads, that's my goal. 50 at 50. Help me or not, and I will give you an update on that. Okay, so another thing I want your input, well, that isn't really input. That's like asking for your help. But a couple things I want your input on. I had mentioned kind of the Spirit Explorer group I'm putting together. That's not the final name, but I cannot think of a name. And that's just what I've been referring to in my notes. So this group of Spirit Explorers that I mentioned before, where I want to get listener questions, just general questions about like aliens and life on other planet or past lives or spirit guides, connecting with loved ones past, like intuition, like what are your questions? If you could send them to a group of people who are going to do a hypnotic journey and search for answers and share those answers, what are those questions? So if you have a question in mind right now, or in the future, if you have a question, you can always go to my website, pastlivesandthedivine.com, click on the podcast tab, and then you can click on ask a question, and you could just throw it in there, and you could say like, this is for the spirit guide, or this is for the Spirit Explorers, or here's a question I have in general about how the universe works. I do think that there's plenty that we can know, plenty more that we can know, but there's just a lot out there that we cannot comprehend with the human mind, which makes me even more so want to like bump right into that edge. So if you're feeling moved to, if you have a question, head over to pastlivesandthedivine.com, click on podcast, and then ask a question. It is anonymous, so if for some reason you're looking for a response to me, I don't know who you are. I won't know how to get in contact with you. So if you're someone who wants a response from me, you're going to have to get on my email list. That's pastlivesandthedivine.com/subscribe. Hop on that email list. It's also email catcher on the bottom of every single web page. So just enter your information there. When you get the email from me, I send you an email right away. It's automatic. Then you're going to respond to that email with your question. So it sounds long. It's not. Stay tuned. More coming on this Explorer group. Yeah. So if you're listening in the future and you're like, ooh, I have a question for that group, still submit the question. If we've already covered it and you're on my email list and I'm able to respond to the email from you, then I could point you to that episode or say, hey, thanks. We'll cover this in the future. Okay. So that is one thing I wanted your input on. Another thing I want your input on, Meredith, the astrologer who we all love. I think you all love her. I love her, and every episode I have with her on the podcast is always some of my most popular episodes. But I have never actually gotten a birth chart reading from Meredith. And when I think of astrology, if someone was like, where do I start? I would say, go to these websites, free downloads for, like Chani Nicholas's website. Chani is Chani Nicholas. Her website, I know astro.com, CoStar, there's many where you can do it. You just need the time of your birth, the location, and the date. And then with that, you kind of get this like outline of your life. That's not really what it is, but like cosmically what makes you tick, maybe is a better way to put that. And I think it's a great place for people to start. I have had my birth chart done. But I've never had it done by Meredith, and I want to do that. I'm going to do it. I actually just scheduled that session, but the session doesn't happen for like a month. Heads up, Meredith is getting busy. And my question to you is, do you want me to record that and like put it in a podcast episode? Are you interested to see how that would go down? Or maybe you're like not interested for any reason. How about this? If you're interested, send me an email and let me know. Or connect with me on Instagram and let me know. And if there's like even just a handful of you that say yes, then I'll do it. But don't assume other people are going to do it. So if you want it in a podcast episode, if you want to hear some of that recording or all of that recording that I do with Meredith, just to kind of get a feel for it. And I don't know, maybe you're just curious as to like what makes me tick, I guess, on the other side of this microphone might be interesting. And I just love Meredith, so hopefully it's an entertaining conversation either way. But let me know if you want that. Okay, last input that I need from you. Questions about my business, questions about my business in hypnotherapy, my changes as an entrepreneur. I've been getting a lot of questions from people who are like, hey, I'm new to this. Any advice? Or I've been getting questions from people who are like, hey, I'm in the wellness industry and starting to get annoyed with it. Can you tell me more? So whatever it is, like, I'm just thinking there's probably a group of people who are listening to this, it seems like, who are in a transition, want to start something on their own, or they're just a little bit more interested in my personal or my professional journey to get here. So if you have questions about that, and maybe you have not ever thought of it before, but a question pops in your mind, either way, same thing. Submit a question on my website or hit reply to an email that I send you and let me know that question. Because obviously, as you can imagine, it's very time consuming when someone's like, I am starting a business. Do you have advice? It's like, I don't know. Where do I begin? Get a therapist. Get a different job to supplement your income so it doesn't taint your love for your passion project. But besides that, there are so many ways that can go. And as you can imagine, when I get an email like that, like I could seriously type for like 2 hours, and I just don't want to spend my time that way. Not that because that person isn't so important. It's that because all of you are so important, and I'd rather put into a podcast episode so more of you can hear it. Whether you have the questions or the question is like, oh yeah, I want to know the answer to that. Those are my favorite podcast episodes to listen to when someone's like, and here's a question. And I'm like, I didn't even know I had that question. I need that answer now. So let me know. Business questions. So here's what I want to know. Questions that you might have for the Spirit Explorers group. Do you want me to record and share my birth chart reading with Meredith that I do? And questions about my business, changes in my business, my evolution to get where I'm at. I can tell you entrepreneurship has been a mirror like no other into my fucking shadows. I'd imagine it showed up for me like that because I don't have children and I'm not going to have children. You know, I can only speculate. But at the end of the day, it has been a real rock and a hard place where I have only had the option to grow. And while I don't think that's a bad thing, it was painful and difficult a lot of the time, especially I feel like in my 30s was like such a fucking baptism into like who I'm going to be the rest of my life, who I'm meant to be, who I came here to be. And if you have any questions about that, I'm not opposed to talking about it. It's just the fact that I could talk about it for days And so I'm going to need your help in focusing me. If you're listening in the future and you're like, is this still valid? Hell yeah, your questions are still valid. Send your questions in. Same thing. If it's already been answered, I'll shoot you the podcast episode. And if it has not yet been answered, I will be grabbing that question and using it in the future. So thank you for your input. And thank you in advance, or thank you if you've ever shared my podcast with anybody. Thank you if you've ever given it a review, whether you typed it up, some nice words, or you clicked the 5 stars. I really, really appreciate it. And if you are someone who's going to help spread this episode to someone new, spread this podcast to someone new, any episode that you think might be up someone else's alley who's in your life, who you could bond with over this kind of freaky deaky thing, then I would love it if you forwarded an episode to them to help us get to that 50,000 downloads at episode 50. Okay, when I said that there, I felt like, gross, why am I doing this? I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm just doing it because I feel like I should. And it's the first business goal I've set in a long time. So kudos to me just for that, right? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being open to the power of our past lives and all of these freaky deaky conversations. Thank you for your input, whether you've done it in the past or you're going to do it in the future. Like I said, I see this as like a combo project between the two of us, right? Like, people think that nothing's happening when you're listening, but listening is an important part. Like, there's no reason for me to be here if you're not listening. So I think of this as a group project. I want to take what I want to do and mix that with what you want to do and like create really fun stuff for all of us. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being open to the power of these conversations, our soul connection, our intuition, our past lives, our higher selves, our spirit guides, and every other enlightened being who is here for us, supporting us and guiding us. Thank you so much for being here. Just like every other episode, take what helps you, what serves you today, and just leave the rest.